Today we're going to do a little bit of a comparison. We're going to see how well the Pixlr X app, which is free, stacks up against Photoshop, which is $20.99 every single month. Let's get to it. If you've been watching my channel for any period of time, you know I'm a full-time YouTuber and I try to do things on the cheap. The things that I review on this channel are generally for people on a budget, so I'm always on the lookout for good applications that can replace the stuff that I've been paying for forever. And Pixlr keeps coming up over and over again, so I thought, why not do a compare and contrast? For this comparison, I'm going to do the exact same thumbnail in Photoshop and Pixlr. We're going to take a look and see the differences and what you have to do to get the same effect in both applications. So let's jump into the applications and get right to it. To get started with Pixlr, you just do a Google search on Pixlr, P-I-X-L-R. You go to the website, you select Pixlr X, and you're going to see this screen right here. For our purposes, we want to create new, and then I select Full HD, which is 1920 by 1080. Then I go up here and I name my image and click Create. You can see this is a pretty simple layout right here. You've got all your tools on the left-hand side. You have your image and your layers on the right hand side. I'm going to show you more deeply how to use this stuff as we move along. The first thing we're going to do is add a couple of images to our thumbnail. This is really easy. You just drag and drop them. When you drop them on top, it's going to ask you how you want to add the image, and you just add it to the current. So the first thing I'm going to do is add the Photoshop logo and then the Pixlr logo. You can see this Pixlr logo has a white background, and I don't really want that. So we're going to remove that background from the Pixlr logo. To do this, we're going to go to the cutout on the left-hand side. We're going to select the magic cutout tool, and we're going to make sure the mode is remove. Then I'm just going to select the white background. You can see it automatically removes it. And any of these little white spots, we're going to remove them as well. And right away, you can see how easy it is to remove the background of an object or an image. You can mess around here with the tolerance a little bit to clean up some of the edges. Then I select the little cross icon at the top and I can move my assets around. I move the Pixlr logo to the top left and the Photoshop logo to the bottom right. And all you have to do once you select the little crosshatch is just click on them and move them. Now I'm going to add another layer here. I go down to the bottom of the layers menu and I just click this little plus button. I'm going to select empty. And then I'm going to select the drawing tool on the left. Once I do this, I want to go up to the very top and select shape. It's the little star thing. Under shape, I select square, and I'm going to make sure I have the color that I want in the background, which is going to be white for this case. Then I'm going to go up in the top left and I'm going to just draw a box over the entire background. The next thing I'm going to do is find another background layer that I'm going to put underneath the white background. Once I find this image, I just drag and drop it over Pixlr. Then I'm going to select Add Current. Then I want to reorder this layer. I want this background layer to be all the way on the bottom. So in the layers area on the right, I just drag and drop it all the way to the bottom. The next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and click on the little three dots to the left of the white layer. And we're going to change the transparency. We're going to turn it down a little bit so that you can see some of the background through there. You can also play around with the overlay modes here, and you're going to notice that this has pretty much every overlay that you're going to find in Photoshop as well. Now we're going to hop over into Photoshop. I'm going to show you how to get that same image to this point. Here we are in Photoshop. We're going to click Create New. Then we want to select 1920 by 1080 and click Create. Adding images in Photoshop is pretty much exactly the same. You can just drag and drop them on. I add the Pixlr image first, and I want to remove that background. I just go up to Select. Then I select Color Range, and I pick that white color. It selects it. Then I usually click the Eraser button. I click on the selection, and I click OK to rasterize. Then I go up to Edit, and I click Clear. Next, I go up to Select and I deselect everything, and now I can just click the little cross in the top left and drag the Pixlr up to the top left of the image. And I drag one of these corners so I can resize it a little bit. Then I'm going to drag and drop the Photoshop image on here. Move it down to the bottom right hand corner. And then I'm going to drag in my little starry background, resize it here, make sure it fits well. Then I go up into Layer, select New and then Layer, and click OK to add another layer. Then I'm going to select Fill in the top left, make sure my color is white, and then I'm just going to fill in that blank layer. Then on the right in the layer area, I'm going to move it below the Pixlr logo. And then I'm going to change the opacity just like we did in Pixlr. Lower it down a little bit, and there we go. And as you can see, at this point, both of these images look exactly the same. Now I'm going to modify this Pixlr logo just a little bit. And this is really, really easy in Photoshop. I just go up to Layer, and I select Layer Style, and then I select Stroke. You can see what Stroke does is it adds this little outline. Now I'm going to change the position from outside to inside, and I'm going to change the color of the stroke to white. So now you can see that I can expand or contract this, and it will change how this stroke is on the outside. And what I want to do is just put a real thin edge around the outside of the Pixlr logo. The next thing I'm going to do is go down here and select Drop Shadow. And we're going to put a little drop shadow on there. I'm going to adjust the size and the distance and the position and all that stuff. Kind of put it so it sits off to the right of the Pixlr logo. Just like that. So I didn't show you how to modify the Pixlr logo in Pixlr. Let's jump over to Pixlr again and see if we can replicate this look a little bit. To get a similar look in Pixlr, it takes a little more effort. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to duplicate the Pixlr logo. Then we'll move that duplicate out of the way a little bit so we can see it. Then we're going to click this little sun icon on the left. That's the adjust tool. If we use this invert slider, we can automatically make it white. That's pretty easy. Next, I go into the color settings here, and I adjust these because what I'm trying to do is just make the white a little brighter. So I turn up the brightness and the exposure to make the white logo just a little more visible. Next, I select the crosshash tool and I move it back up over top of our other logo. Then in the layer panel on the right, I'm going to move this white layer below the black one. Next, I'm going to try to adjust the size of the white layer to kind of give us the same effect that we're looking for. Now this can take some work, and you're probably not going to get quite the exact same effect because when you scale it, it scales differently. It's not doing exactly what you want, but you're going to get something that looks pretty similar. And to be honest with you, if you're a little bit more creative, you can find plenty of ways to add stroke to these that might even be easier than the one I'm showing you here. But once we get that slight white background, kind of like what we had on the other one, we want to create that drop shadow. So what I'm going to do is select the black Pixlr logo again, and I'm going to duplicate that. We're going to move this out of the way so we can see it. Then we're going to move that layer underneath the other two Pixlr layers. Now we're going to select the filter menu on the left. We're going to bump up the blur. As you can see, that kind of blurs our text out a little bit. And then we're going to move the blurry layer we just created into position right below there, so it adds a little bit of a drop shadow. Now again, this is definitely not as easy or effective as what you can do in Photoshop, but at the same time, if you're creative, you can find ways to do any of the techniques that you use in Photoshop pretty easily in Pixlr. Here's what the two shots look like by comparison. Now I think we can all admit that the next thing this thumbnail needs is a goofy picture of me pointing at these logos. So I'm going to reorganize these logos here in Pixlr, put them in different locations, and then I'm going to drag and drop a goofy picture of me. When I drag and drop, I select Add Current, and there it is, a goofy picture of me. Now what we want to do with this picture is remove this background. So we're going to select the cutting tool. The first thing we're going to do with the cutting tool here is we're going to select the shape tool, and we want it to be square, and we also want to select remove. Then we want to select the square box that we want to remove, and we'll just go through and we'll remove as much of this in bulk as we possibly can using our square tool. Now that we've gotten a pretty decent amount of it removed, I'm going to show you how to use the magic content tool here. If you have areas that are all basically one color that you want to remove, all you have to do is move it over those areas and click the little button, and boom, those areas are removed. Next, I'm going to go over and select the pen tool, and with this, you can see you just draw on an area, it leaves a little red line, and when you're finished drawing, it just removes those little areas. Now, I can go up in the top right under Navigate, and I can zoom in a little bit, and I just use this little square box on Navigate to put the image over the location that I want. And now I can just go in here with a finer brush and brush away these areas. And you can change the size of the brush to any size that you want, so you can get more of a finer edge if that's what you're looking for. For me, this is by far the most comprehensive background removal tool that I've seen on any free software anywhere. It works really well and it gives you lots of options. And you can see once the background is removed, I can just move this image to any location that I want. And there we have it, a goofy picture of me pointing at the logos. Now let me show you how we do this in Photoshop. Back in Photoshop here, we just drag our image over top. I'm going to turn off this Photoshop logo for now. In Photoshop, I like to use the Magic Selector tool to remove a background. So I go up and I select that tool. And with the Magic Select tool, you just go over the image using the left mouse button to select areas that you want to select. When you end up with areas that you don't want selected, I usually zoom in, I'll hold down the Alt key, and then I'll select those areas and it will uninclude them. Once I have a clean selection, I'll select the eraser tool. I'll click anywhere in that selection. It'll ask me if I want to rasterize. I click OK. Then I go up to Edit and Clear, and all of the selected area is going to be cleared. Now I can move it where I want it to be. I can go up and select and deselect, and now I'm going to just move all my assets around to where I want them to be. I can change the size and shape and scale of me, move me around, all that fun stuff. And here's a quick look at what they both look like at this point. Next, we're going to add some simple text to our thumbnail. We'll start in Pixlr. On the left, we'll select text, then add new text. Then in the text box, you just add the text you want. Then you can go through and select from literally hundreds of fonts. Once you have your font selected, you can change the size, you can change line spacing, or even letter spacing. This text tool in Pixlr is really easy to use. You can add an outline to your text, which is the same as stroke in Photoshop, and you can change the color of that outline. We selected a black outline here. We're going to go ahead and change that text to yellow. You can also go down here and add a shadow, add blur, move the positioning around, change your opacity. Pretty much anything that you can do with text in Photoshop, you can definitely do in Pixlr. It's a really nice text tool. Let me show you how we would do this in Photoshop. On the left, we're going to select our text tool. We can drop down and select any font we want. These are really easy to add, although that's a subject for another video. Then you click in your image where you want to add your text and you type it in. To add our stroke and drop box, we go up to Layer, Layer Style, and then we select Stroke. You can adjust the size of the stroke as you see fit, and we're going to add a drop shadow as well. So here are the two thumbnails. I think you'd agree that they look pretty similar. The major difference between the two is how easy it was to get effects on the Pixlr logo in Photoshop that we weren't easily able to replicate in Pixlr. Now, I'm sure that if you spent some time with Pixlr, you'd probably be able to get basically the exact same effect, but for this tutorial, I didn't spend a whole heck of a lot of time trying to make it identical. Cutting out the background of an object is extremely easy in both Photoshop and Pixlr. It's probably easier in Photoshop, but again, it's also $20.99 every single month. It's free in Pixlr, and in my opinion, the quality is exactly the same. You have all the same image manipulation tools in Pixlr that you have in Photoshop. And as far as text goes, they may as well be identical. It's just as easy to create text and effects in Pixlr as it is in Photoshop. And it's absolutely free. So in my personal opinion, if you wanted to do your thumbnails completely free, Pixlr is absolutely for you. It can pretty much do everything that Photoshop does right in your web browser. And the beauty of it is that anything that you can do in your web browser, you can also do on your phone. So all of the things that you saw me do today in Pixlr using my web browser, you could easily replicate using your cell phone. If you don't have a computer, that means you can create pretty professional thumbnails right on your smartphone. It's pretty difficult to do, and I'd highly recommend using a tablet if you were going to use some sort of smart device, but it is possible. In my opinion, Pixlr is the most powerful art tool I've found by far that's absolutely free. But I'd like to know what you think. Are you going to switch from Photoshop to Pixlr? Let me know in the comments. The one feature that Pixlr doesn't allow you to do is bend text, but I show you how to do that in this video right here. If you want to learn more about apps, tips, and tricks that can make you a better YouTuber, subscribe to the channel. My name is Michael Fire Jr. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.